Excellent. So welcome everyone. Our quarterly winter webinar for charter leaders, superintendents, collaborative leaders, and executive directors. Glad to be here with you today. And today we, have a lot of information to share. Again, we always reach out to you to ask what you want as agenda items. We do, then add some of our own things that we need you to know. And your input on this agenda is very important. And we know that this is, a fair amount of information today. And my hope is that, as we are sort of going through some challenging times right now, which is really my first point in the introduction, that, I approach this with the spirit of, if we can provide you with timely information that helps you do your jobs better, it gives you more bandwidth, less questioning of like what's going on between DESE and our districts, and more ability then to just engage in the important work that you're doing. So that's the spirit with which I begin today's presentation. Obviously, just starting with how we are using our education vision to maintain our commitment. In that introduction, we frame our topics around our three strategic objectives. So just starting with our whole student supports, you see that we want to talk more about our partnership with the Attorney General's Office and the Office for Refugees and Immigrants to support our immigrant families right now. The third topic around deeper learning is how it relates to the evolution of the competency determination in spirit of reimagining the high school experience for our students. The fourth topic around our support to increase the diversity and effectiveness of our educator workforce is just a preview of what's coming as possible amendments to licensure regulations. And then, we also believe that our core functions at DESE are in support of our education vision as well. And so 3 topics to share with you today around staff attendance, our problem resolution system, and the Student Opportunity Act. Then we do have this planned that there'll be time for any additional announcements and Q&A at the end. So just jumping in, it goes without saying that right now we're in some very challenging times, as we are hearing about these executive orders and what they mean for our students and our families, and we're definitely hearing your concerns. And I just want to start with again, focusing on our education vision. You hear us at every meeting talking about the importance of this vision. And, I really want to focus on that first idea that all students are known and valued. And that is so critical before any of this began to happen, and even more critical now, that we, just firmly come to this, I believe, with the framework that, this is not about ideology. This is about humanity. This is about responsibility. This is about our responsibility to show up and serve every student who comes through our schoolhouse door, every family. And that means that we have to dig in. We have to make sure that we're really clear about if there's noise, what is the beacon that we need to look to, which is always our laws. It is always the uniqueness of Massachusetts in some ways when it comes to laws and regulations. And so I hope that, what I can share with you right now just helps to keep us strong and keep us united and keep us focused, again, on humanity over ideology, on responsibility to ensure that all students in our schools are known and valued. And so with that, sort of as a framework, I'm going to share with you some of what currently exists as resources, and then at the end talk to you about what's coming. So the first thing is just, again, as we think about, and I hope that you're aware of the partnership that we've been engaging in with our Attorney General's Office and ORI, that we've been running these series of webinars, but the webinars are really backing up the sort of foundation for those webinars are 3 important pieces of guidance that I think are relevant and hopefully help to keep us, focused on what are our rights and responsibilities right now as it relates to our immigrant students in our schools. And so I've laid out the 3 documents here. You can see that the first one is an advisory that dates back to when Governor Healy was our Attorney General. So it's a little bit older, but it's not out of date. And it really talks about, again, what are the laws that clearly define our obligation, our responsibilities to families who are refugees or immigrants, and then what are their rights, very importantly. And there's some overlap with the second document, upholding the rights of immigrant students to enroll in school. There's a little bit of overlap between those 2 pieces of guidance. But then really importantly, how do we protect students' information at a time like this when there's questioning about who has access to student information. So those three guidance documents, we're putting the links in the chat just so you have easy access to them. And then, like I said, we've really been working to uplift that information and answer questions through the series of webinars that we have organized with our partner agencies, ORI, and with the AG's office. And so we've included the link. If you haven't been able to come to one of these webinars, and you're still kind of wondering about any of the kind of legalities related to immigration and how it relates to our schools, I would encourage you to take a look at those slides. I also know that a lot of you are looking to put out your own statements, and I encourage that. Let's make sure that we're clear and local about how we're upholding students' right to an education, right to privacy, and it's all based on the law. This is not ideology. This is law. And let's just make sure that we are, I hope that the resources we're providing in those guidance documents, in the slides, might just help to bolster any message that you're working to send right now too. And then a new resource that you may not be familiar with because it's pretty hot off the presses is just a shorter, more condensed flyer that really bridges all of this information together. You can see it's a bit more user-friendly. This is meant for professional purposes. So it's not being translated for, as outreach to families. It's really what, if you needed to quickly describe how are we protecting all students and their information, that this flyer hopefully can help as well. So we're just putting this all in the chat for you to be able to access and use as you are going about your work. And we really appreciate your willingness to just uphold these rights and making our schools safe places for learning, which I know is what you are doing each and every day. So a couple of things just to draw out from our recent presentations. We took some of the information from that slide deck that I mentioned to you earlier, and just put in just two slides, just the big picture reminders is that all schools, we have the responsibility to provide equal access to education regardless of immigration or citizenship status. I think that's well known, but we just want to keep saying it, and that as such, there can be no policies that discourage or deny access to school based on immigration status. So I appreciate your work with your school committees just to make sure that we're not putting any barriers in the way. We educate 915,000 students in the state. We're going to continue to educate all of them. All of them have access to our schools, regardless of immigration status. And then the second one is really about identifiable information. And I know there'll be some questions in the chat about this as well that we'll get to at the end. But we want to make sure that we're being clear about what we're making available publicly, particularly through directory information. And so if this is something that you haven't thought about yet, I just encourage you to go look at the resource documents or the slides to just see some additional considerations about how schools are disclosing any personal identifiable information, and then even including what you do release right now through directory information, if any of that would be worth re-examining at this time, so that we can serve our students well. So, just a quick update on, particularly, supports related to, our families who are concerned based on immigration status, and just your knowledge and the resources you can provide to support them, our educators, our staff members as well. And but we know that that's not the limit of where there are a lot of questions and concerns right now. So we are in development of an additional advisory that we'll be putting out relative to just making sure we're clear about, again, what are those Massachusetts protections for all students? And we've had a lot of questions about gender identity as well. And so we just want to be firm and clear about, what are the protections? What does it mean? What are we working to do to uphold protections that are based in law that we are not going to equivocate on? And what are some resources that we have available to help you uphold our Massachusetts laws and federal laws, frankly, to protect our students? So an additional advisory is forthcoming. Our goal is before February break to release that advisory for you. And hopefully, again, overall, what are protections for students, and then focusing in on our students based on gender identity as well, will be an important resource we want to make available. With that, another just complete shift though, but it relates again to this idea of supporting the whole student, supporting student well-being in our schools. is just a reminder that the Attorney General's Office has released, in concert with the Executive Office of Education and DESE, a cell phone and social media toolkit. And the way that I've been describing this toolkit is, yes, it does include three ideas for three different policies for reducing or restricting the use of cell phones in our schools. But I like to think of it more as, well, what does that get? That actually gets us something. That gets us more student focus, stronger interactions between students and teachers. And I feel really strongly that this needs to be a local decision. And there are a lot of contextual factors that lead to whatever policy is perhaps selected locally. And I know a lot of you have already been in this work, so a lot of this might be sort of reading through it and saying, yeah, check, we're already on top of that. And it also might be an opportunity to think of perhaps some new ideas for addressing cell phones and social media in our schools. And we know that there's legislation working its way through right now related to this. So understanding what this guidance says could maybe help us understand and maybe even inform any kind of legislation that's in process right now. So that's really our focus on the whole student, developing strong students in our schools, well-being, protecting students' rights. All of that really matters, and I appreciate all that you're doing to make that happen. Moving on to our second strategic objective around deeper learning. Part of this is our goal to continue to reimagine the high school experience for students. And so the change in the law that came through the ballot initiative this November continues to push us on, where are we going with the competency determination? And we know that the governor has named, created an executive order that will establish a graduation council co-chaired by the secretary and the commissioner. And so we are obviously working together, Secretary Tutwiler and myself and our teams, to launch that commission that will hopefully pave the way for something even bigger and bolder and brighter for our students. We're really excited about that. That really relates to, like, how can we think of bringing that idea of deeper learning, all across the high school experience for our students, so they really get that sort of very rich, interactive, relevant learning experience that we can provide for them in our schools. And so the law has changed. And in the meantime, while the council is doing that work, we have an obligation to make sure that we use regulation to clarify, what's in the current statute, right? Based on the current changes, we need to sort of keep up with that while we look ahead to, even bigger changes perhaps coming as a result of the governor's council. So we are in the midst of working this through with our board. We've had a series of 3 meetings, November, December, January, have all been kind of exploratory with our board to kind of, hear their input, begin to bring ideas forward. At our January meeting, our board asked if maybe we could have a special meeting in between the January meeting and the regularly scheduled February meeting to continue to look at possible areas of change in our competency determination regulations. So just so you're aware, that is scheduled for next Monday night at 5:30. It will be a virtual meeting. And we're going to go into a lot of the areas that you see here based on their feedback that they've been giving us through these last the 3 meetings that have led us to this point. And what that is in service of is, then perhaps being able to bring, regulations to the board later this winter and to go out for public comment on. And so first, just things that have to change. We need to delete existing references to MCAS, in particular in awarding the competency determination. We think it could be helpful to define terms that are now in the revised statutory language. So words like mastery or satisfactorily, we think could benefit from some clearer definitions to really promote what we hear from our board a lot is, like, with this change, how are we upholding a consistent standard across the state? How do we make sure the diploma really means something consistently from district to district? And so hopefully with things like, defining terms, and then even perhaps DESE's oversight role, so the extent to which we should collect the plans that you are creating locally and voting on with your school committee, to be able to, collect them, perhaps publish them, sort of different levels of what our oversight role might be, is something that we are presenting to our board and getting their feedback on. And then really a question of, do we look to add additional areas of world language or history and social sciences, because the statutory language has a consideration for our board to be able to add those two subject areas, again, world language and history and social sciences. So just a reminder that this is under, kind of in the works right now. Special meeting next Monday night, and then bringing that to our full board at the end of the month. We might be at that point, we might be at that point ready to go out for, to bring regs for vote for our board to go out for a public comment. So just want to come full circle though, and just come back to the idea that we are pleased that there is this idea though of, and more than idea, the establishment of this graduation council that will, really, create that responsibility to make sure that every student graduates ready to succeed. And I'm excited to embrace that idea. I know I look forward to the groups that are here to be represented by and large on that council. And so more to come. I think that pretty soon there'll probably be information about exactly who's filling the seats that are named in the executive order. And so, stay tuned for that. That's one of the next steps. And then obviously the council getting its work underway and how it will operate is also something that we need to be able to explain. Next up, just again, a preview of what we're bringing to our board, because, frequently I'm hearing from superintendents and executive directors around just the, continual wanting to, again, increase the diversity and effectiveness of our educator workforce. And we know that licensure regulations plays into that. What is the pathway into teaching? How are we getting, using licensure as a lever to, uphold a strong standard for what does it mean to be a teacher, but have multiple pathways for getting there. And so just want to give you a quick preview of what is coming before our board. I'm going to, I'm not going to go, you see this many bullet points, you're like, did he not get the memo about death by PowerPoint? But I'll just go quick here just to sort of lift it off the page. For the past 3 years, that we have been studying alternative assessments for licensure, those MTEL alternatives that we've had in place. For the past 3 years, we've been researching the effectiveness of each of those MTEL alternatives. And our research partner will be presenting to our board the findings of the effectiveness of the various, MTEL pathways essentially that we've created. And our goal is then to have our board vote to decide which of the current pilot alternative assessments will become, kind of more, fully authorized across all of the licensure areas. So we're excited to bring that research information as well as a proposal for making some of these pilot alternatives more permanent as we go forward. You can see some of the other bullet points that we have here. I'm also excited about, as we want to expand the number of bilingual educators that we have in the state, that a problem that we want to solve for is that teachers who are becoming certified and then getting the endorsement as bilingual educators, we want to kind of reduce the kind of steps that they have to take that might be unnecessary. So allowing a bilingual endorsement as an alternative to the SEI endorsement means that there's one endorsement pathway you have to go down, not both, because we just don't think it necessarily makes sense for someone who wants to be a bilingual teacher to have to do both a bilingual endorsement and the SEI endorsement. So that will be something that is forthcoming, and will help to expand the amount of bilingual programming we're able to offer in our state. And then we need to be clear about the extension, the kind of finality of the emergency licenses. And then finally, I'm just also excited about what we can do to encourage more teachers to enter into our career technical fields, but still upholding a high standard, right? And so some more flexibilities, but always keeping our eye on the standard that we need for our educators. Again, this will be proposed regulatory changes that we would bring before our board to go out for public comment. So just a kind of a heads up on what's coming, and then there's plenty of time for you and others to be able to provide comment on what ultimately gets decided later this spring to become, written into our regulations. So just going on to our core functions, and like I mentioned, a few just to name, and this is where I'm going to be a little more detailed about staff attendance. For the past several years, we have been collecting from you, obviously, student attendance and reporting that. And we've also been collecting staff attendance, but we haven't reported it yet. So last summer, I wrote a letter to superintendents and executive directors of public districts saying that, we last spring, we were, as we rounded out the data collection, that we were looking at the staff attendance data that you sent to us with an eye towards potentially being able to publish it. So we asked you to provide us with the very cleanest staff attendance data as possible. It is better. We are pleased to see the improvements in the data that we're receiving, but it's actually not at the point yet where we're able to confidently report it publicly. And so this will be a year where we are not producing it publicly, with an eye, though, towards improving some of the places where we can see that the data needs some refinement, needs some better attention, so that when we go forward, hopefully at the end of this year, right, or really, next year, I'm sorry, the 25-26 school year, that we are able to publish staff attendance data. And a lot of, we've had a lot of questions about this as something that would be helpful in telling the story of the student experience in our schools. We see the extent to which our students are absent or chronically absent. How do we overlay that with an understanding of what's happening in terms of their days in school and the presence of their educators? And so obviously it's something that has to be done very thoughtfully, sensitively, and we just want to make sure that when we do it, that it's done with a great deal of accuracy. And so just like I said, I'm going to be a little bit more step-by-step here. We know that, you are reporting that to us through EPIMS, and it's not just teachers and administrators, but it's all the staff who are submitted in the staff roster. And the just important to note how we calculate that is the number of days attendance and the number of days that an educator or staff member, I should say, is expected. Is the way. So, you could have, a long-term sub, for example. When I say all staff, this includes that long-term sub who comes in for 45 days. And so they were expected for 45 days. What's the number of days attended? Helps us understand that percentage of attendance. So it is very unique to how many days a staff member is expected to be present. And we're then making sure that, we're drawing that line at, but you have to have 20 or more days in attendance to be included in the count. So, for example, that long-term sub, if it's a shorter term stint where it's less than 20 days, that staff member would not be included. 45, 90 days, that sort of thing, they would be. And then, all the educators, administrators, all staff who are working would be based on, their contractual arrangements. And so we are providing the data to you, or we have provided the data to you in the end of year EPIMS summary, and it includes the information that you see there. But just going on a little bit further, we will be following up this spring to share more information with you in the security portal drop boxes that will have last year's information. And so, like I was saying, we've already, this kind of matches what you've already been able to see through those summary reports from EPIMS. And there are some districts that we can kind of hone in on. Where do we need to work with some districts that we just need to clarify staff attendance reporting expectations for that end of year EPIMS collection that will come up, again, at the end of this school year. And so, we can hone in on, so some of you should expect some outreach from us. And it's really particularly, districts that maybe reported, extraordinarily high levels of attendance or extraordinarily low levels of attendance. It's those outliers where we'll be following up a little bit more. And we do include here our FAQ for you to be able to get more information about this. And, just finally, as it relates to this, just want to, also then look at this not from just a data perspective, but also from, an educator effectiveness perspective. And just that reminder that in our classroom teacher rubric, under professional culture. The professional responsibilities indicator is really a place where we're able to perhaps comment on every educator's attendance. And I know some districts have done that to actually include that in educators' evaluations. And I think what's important is never singling any one educator out whatsoever. But if we just make this a standard of we're having a conversation about really the importance of staff attendance in uplifting the outcomes of our students, and hopefully seen as a positive conversation, a productive conversation, a constructive conversation. And I know that there are lots of viewpoints on how to go even deeper on this topic. So I'm hitting a little surface level here on using our educator evaluation framework. But I appreciate the conversations that I know are going on across districts about this. The next core function that I just want to discuss at your request is our work to continue to improve our problem resolution system when we receive complaints, both general education or special education, and our responsibility to follow up on those complaints through our problem resolution system. Just want to you're asking about what are you doing to continue to improve that system, and so want to provide you with an update right now. We have, because a lot of what we do obviously is sort of back and forth with you as our districts through templates, schools and districts, through our letters. And so really first step was to, just make sure that we have, clarity, consistency around how we're structuring those templates for, an even growing number of staff members. And so just really working to increase that sort of both effectiveness and efficiency of our work. And we are working to make sure that we are improving the more efficient investigatory techniques. A really key thing that's coming, right? So those are a couple things that we've done. Something really important that I want you to know that's coming is a separate general education procedures guide. And what we've done for many years is we've treated special education complaints, which are described in federal law and required through both federal and state law. Our general education procedures are only defined through state law and regulation. And so we have more latitude to figure out, well, what really works there. And it's not that the special ed isn't working. It's just we don't have to have the same procedures for both. And so what you should anticipate is with a goal of releasing this in the summer of 2025, we will put out for comment a revised process for reviewing general education complaints and getting your feedback on, again, ways that we can improve both the efficiency and effectiveness of that type of complaint investigation. We continue to train our PRS staff and updating our website with additional resources for our families, particularly, what are some other dispute resolution options? Because I believe that, once we get to a written complaint, it often sort of, really breaks down that sort of more local, again, sort of collaborative problem solving that can happen as a result of, in comparison to having to have state intervention. We will, of course, investigate wherever necessary, but we do believe that we want to support more local dispute resolution options. And so our goal of release of updated resources is the summer and fall of 2025. Again, I'll be glad at the end to see if you have additional questions about that. We do want to provide you with an update on some time-sensitive information about the Student Opportunity Act. And in particular, as we get to this spring, and I do apologize, I'm inside a school right now as I come to you today. A school that's open today, which is happy. I do appreciate everyone's work to keep kids safe today. So just let this end. There we go. That there's in law a requirement around the Student Opportunity Act, the SOA plan submissions that you are required to provide to us. And so we just want to particularly hone in on what's coming this spring, because as I think when we look back a year, right, last year, I'm going to start right here at this third from the bottom, you provided to us your new 3-year SOA plans. What is important is that this spring, this April, now what we need from you is a progress report. And again, just to orient you to this slide, for those of you who've been at this, since the inception of the SOA, we know that during COVID, we had to kind of modify this, both, the initial, well, not really, we had to modify, how you amended and then submitted your progress reports. We're now back on the regular submission cycle required by law, which is that, 3-year plan submitted last April and now this April, a progress report to us, as well as next April as well. So if it's not already in the works, we do want to kind of, just take today to kind of orient you to that we do have this requirement for progress reports due on April 1st for our public school districts and August 1st for our public charter school districts. And those progress reports really just have 3 key topic areas to cover. Just that summary of your progress in implementing the SOA plan to date, key changes to your plan, and next steps in implementation, as well as ongoing activities to engage families and caregivers and other stakeholders. So again, the primary audience, you're submitting them to us, yes, but really it's with the eye towards a report to your local stakeholders. So we hope that you can kind of, use this as a great lever to really just, talk about your progress. And, again, any adjustments, we know plans have to be adjusted. And then, how are you keeping, stakeholder engagement strong throughout this process? So what's coming is an email, right, following today's webinar. There'll be an email that will come to you and district staff designated as SOA plan writers in our GEM system, and it will tell you information about 2 upcoming webinars. One is next week, and we've already signaled in certain conversations that we have a webinar coming next week, so that is established. You'll be able to jump on that if it works for your schedule. And then we're holding another one after February break, because we know that this is a time of year where you need a choice, something sooner next week, something after February break. So those webinars will be held heavy emphasis on during the weeks of February 10th and February 24th. Our email will specify the exact dates and times for those webinars. And essentially what we need you to do, just first and foremost, is to just select that time that works best for you and your team. And my colleague, Karen Johnston, who's here in this webinar with us, is always available to provide support and to galvanize our team for additional consultation that you might need. So please don't hesitate to reach out to her at that email address, soaplans@mass.gov, with any questions that you might have. And then finally, I just want to round this out with just some additional announcements that actually don't come from our agency, but are maybe important for you to know that are coming from other agencies. So if you think back in 2023, there was the mental health law that got passed at the kind of end of the Baker administration that created an interagency review team for complex student cases. So students, youth, young adults under age 22 who live in Massachusetts and who are maybe, kind of stuck between, state agencies or hospital involved. And it's sort of, one of the cases where it's really hard to sort of pinpoint, what is the next step and how do we support this student well, bringing, state resources to bear in some cases, what's a district's special education responsibility, for example. Good news is that interagency review team is now up and running. And so they're operational. And if you have a referral, this is the link to use, the email address that you see there, the IRT-complexcases@mass.gov. So we hope that that will be of service to you and your teams as you navigate just complex cases that we want to bring kind of comprehensive state support and review to make that happen well. Our colleagues at DPH just also wanted to remind us about their memo related to out-of-state field trips, particularly because there's just a lot of questions that come up every year regarding medication administration on field trips, particularly if they're out of state. And so we are attaching the memo that just clarifies that school nurses are only able, our authorization for the nurses that are in our schools is for the care of students while they are in Massachusetts. And that any provisions for allowing the delegation of medication to unlicensed staff just don't apply out of state. And so we hope that that's just timely, because we know kind of a lot of out-of-state field trips begin to happen as we go later into the winter and into the spring. So just wanted to remind you about that. And then finally, we know that this is gastrointestinal illness time of year, and we know that it's really affecting our schools and our childcare programs. And so if there is an outbreak, right, if you are experiencing an outbreak of GI illness in your schools, there is an optional form, like a way of just reporting it, so DPH can help to kind of monitor these outbreaks and even provide particularly guidance on outbreak management and control. I know I've had conversations with a few superintendents particularly in the fall and early winter about, we're experiencing an outbreak, we're definitely turning to our local public health for support. And then how do we get support from state DPH? Because, we want that extra layer, we want that additional support. And so by filling out, if you're seeing something that looks like an outbreak, being able to fill out that form not only helps to notify DPH so that they can kind of track the existence of illness in our schools, but also to be able to get statewide support from a DPH epidemiologist to provide you guidance on outbreak management and control. So with that, my almost final slide is just that we'll follow up, as we always do, these webinars with and on the desktop that will include these webinar slides, as well as, really importantly, a call for mentors for our Influence 100 program to really, develop, again, we'll come back to those words, increase the diversity and effectiveness of our superintendent and district leader pipeline. Really excited about the role that Influence 100 plays in that. So many of you are seasoned and experienced in the role of being superintendent, of being executive director, of being district leader. And so we hope that you'll look for this on the desktop, which will include a call for mentors to ask if you're willing to step forward and mentor someone who is aspiring to move into that district leadership role. And then just finally, we always post these webinars on the commissioner's webpage. And so here's a screenshot of what that looks like and a link to where they are, so that you can always go back and find them as necessary. So we will we'll end the recording